I was thinking about writing a script. I have some basis of scripts. And I will do that, but I want to see what comes off the top. I just want to see what comes out, And then, we'll see what's best, and I'll implement that into the script for the future.
Okay.
Here we are. My name's Jack. I am the founder of many different things. But if I tried to look at what all those things represent, I would say more and more I get clarity towards the things I'm working on, solving systemic problems in the world. Now, typically I've done that through ventures, businesses which then can scale and operate and grab more profit. But this movement recently that I became a part of, effective altruism, made me realize that there is the capability for far more capital to flow through a non-profit incentive. For me, I've never been about the profit. I've often told people I plan to die with zero. I've posted on the Effective Altruism forum all of my company's equity I'll give to charity in 2050, just to try to make statements and show that I'm about that. But I think the biggest way to show that I'm about that is to start a parallel type of movement to EA, because I do have a lot of criticisms, which come down to mainly the fact that the stuff that they try to do is not systemic. And so I think really, if you do not focus on the cause, the root of the problem, and you just focus on the symptoms, then you'll never actually help. You'll just be sweeping away the problems. I have this viewpoint for so many different things in life, for being vegetarian. I absolutely think that in the future, we will look back at this time and say, holy crap, I can't believe they killed live animals and actually ate them. But I eat steak. I love steak. And I know that my help towards pushing forward stem cell and lab-grown meat is going to do a lot more than me just not eating meat. I know that me giving money to a homeless person isn't worth anything. It's not systemic. It doesn't solve the root cause. To some degree, you could call it like feeding the wrong solution. Because if we do cover up these problems, say for depression, I think Xanax and these sorts of pills that we put people on are actually worse than pushing it through, hey, go to this ProHab facility. We don't need to call it rehab. If someone's just depressed, I think we should have something called ProHab, which helps people fix their reward system. Because the problem is the underlying wiring in the brain. And the solution is not to just mute people's emotions, which Xanax and Alazopram do, but to rewire their brain to become a normal functioning person in society who doesn't need a numbing drug. I recently got a friend off of these drugs, and now they're finally starting to feel more emotions, and they are far more happy even being able to experience like real sadness, because now they can also experience happiness. They're losing tons of weight. Big side effect was lots of weight. I
became less depressed off of my antidepressants.
Once you got off them,
Yeah.
it made you more depressed.
They made me more depressed. Yeah.
Did they help in some form though?
Yeah, you kind of become more robotic.
More
in
mute.
A sense. Yeah.
They take the graph overall and they just dim
Right.
everything.
Less happiness, less sadness.
Lower highs,
Yeah.
lower lows. To the
Yeah.
to the degree where we're seeing the size of the graph when I say lower lows.
Right.
Less low lows to
Yeah.
another degree.
Yeah.
This is my girlfriend Sarah.
Hello.
While I'm speaking about a lot of these different things, stuff that I've thought about and just like research, I may go too far down the scientific or philosophical standpoints that could be hard to digest. And so Sarah's role here today is to basically ask questions when she can identify the fact that I've explained something in a format which is not 100, not with clarity, and allow me to kind of give clarity for some of the points or topics that I talk about. So this idea of systemic altruism, I really love to the degree that it is a movement it is a philosophy, it is a way of thinking, of doing good in the world that to me is omnimemetic. Omnimemetic meaning this allows itself to be something that anyone can be a part of. You know, it's universal for any group or religion. The claim is simply, we want to do the most good, and to do that, we focus on the systemic and root core problems of things. So I love that. I've often, since I was young, been dreaming up different movements because I've always been looking at problems that are far bigger than myself and then recognizing the fact that there's no way that I can actually solve this, but the biggest thing that I can do is make more people aware of this problem, build community, build somewhat of a more bigger movement towards this thing. And the thing that I would like to reference when I thought about, for example, longevity was one thing early on that I got into. Like, okay, most suffering comes from our inability to understand our genetic code. Therefore, if we can push that forward, if we can understand that that research is worth a lot, then we are going to do so much good. And my oldest brother was like, you should go into biology. You should go do research at a college and that sort of thing. And I do think that's a very valuable type of place to move forward. And I think all of us have the different place in society where we benefit the world and the role that we have. But I saw my role as, could I look at it from a perspective of, if I spent 5 years trying to convince 2 other people who were going into college for them to go study and focus on longevity, can I make that happen? Well, yes, 100%. Like, I think I have a very persuasive personality to the degree that I have a lot of passion for these things. I have a lot of passion towards pushing people towards becoming their highest selves and taking like their highest exponential path. It's like, okay, whatever you're doing, I want you to dream bigger. And that's sort of my role, is like, let's dream bigger. Let's look towards the highest high together. And so this has then been an evolution. I did start something from that, and that, you know, reached over 10 million people, and I'm unaware of the total amount of impact I made towards longevity. A lot of this stuff is intractable, but you know, I know it's more than if I did just go into biology, and it then allows me to continue to dream bigger and think about what larger movements can I spread on stuff which is even bigger than just longevity. Because longevity was something that I was able to look towards originally because, you know, I was living with my grandmother for a good amount of time and witnessing her going into dementia and witnessing just like genetic failure happening and researching stats about, you know, that is the main cause of death is aging, one could say. And so this was an easy place to place myself. It was also something where I look at it like, this is a disease that I have, it's a disease that my parents have, it's a disease that all my friends have. Wow, this is really something I can wrap my head around towards wanting to fix. And I can do that in a really big way because there's a chance that I either help my parents become a part of this longevity escape velocity stage, which is when we start increasing the average longevity or the average lifespan of a human by a year per each year. So it's not once we solve all aging, you know, where it's like we just achieve immortality. It's once we achieve longevity escape velocity. Simply means like science is progressing faster than our bodies are decaying. And it's something like we're approaching. I like to say that where computers are today and where they were when I was young, or a bit before that, where like the size of this house was way, way less powerful than what I have in my pocket. I like to say that genetic engineering is there. It's in this big exponential path. The cost to actually sequence a full human genome has gone from tens of millions of dollars. In 2002 is when they first decoded the first human genome. It really wasn't that accurate. It's the type of thing where they got that award a little too early. But now it's like we are fully sequencing these genomes. That took like over a decade for them to figure out. Now it's under an hour. It's literally $100. And so all that data is absolutely key. We can sort of think about our own DNA as a code. There's two different base pairs. It's binary. It's like ones and zeros inside of a computer. We can trace these things, and we're starting to understand how this code works. So like you imagine this with cars. We don't understand how a car works, then we cannot have it come into a mechanic shop. We can't make an old car still work. But there's tons of old classics on the road because we do understand cars. And if we just put the money into it, we're gonna fix those and they can run as long as they want. We can replace the engine. We can build new engines. It's like building new hearts. So these types of ideas are really, really clear to me. And it's really, really clear to me that from a longevity standpoint, I will be a big benefactor of that. My parents will be a big benefactor of that. I used to think of this as like a time limit thing. And now I look towards bigger overarching risks. I actually think from a technological standpoint, worrying about my parents dying of old age is less of a worry. And the bigger worry is with AI being something that current elites use to build an eternal totalitarian regime. At the end of the day, one thing that comes up when I say that to some Christian family members or people of other faiths is this idea of, no, that won't happen, God won't let that happen. And I think there's a really salient argument against that, which is, well, if God won't let that happen, why are young females in the United States committing over double the amount of suicide since the iPhone was released? So if we're always going to rely on some higher power to fix the problems of today, why are we trying to do anything? Why would we even save like a child from drowning next to us? It's like, God will handle it. To what degree do we say God will handle it? And I think the degree that we say that is none. Actually, what God requests of any of us and all of us is to be his hands and his eyes and ears and to give full devotion towards him, which is the idea that all of the stuff that we do that is a distraction, I look at as sin. I have a Judeo-Christian background. I now consider myself omnist to the degree that I'd like to respect all religions. But I think there's lots of similarities. I think the core fundamental truth of religion comes down to doing the most good. So that's why I enjoyed effective altruism. That's why I think it spread as the somewhat of a Silicon Valley religion. And that's why I look at it and I say, hey, they do want to do the most good, but I actually think it's less effective to focus on like sending bed nets and doing certain stuff like trying to decelerate the pace of AI rather than focusing on the systemic change of like build great stuff. They're really worried in their movement about misaligned AI of the future. Like, oh, what if we build AI that doesn't help humans but it harms us? And so they're spending tons of money, literally giving certain younger researchers like 150 grand a year just to do theoretical research, publish long research papers, and that sort of stuff. It's very much so stemming from academia. And that pains me because AI is not misaligned in the future, it is misaligned today. That same stat of iPhones coming out, it's not the phones that are hurting people. These phones can be very magical devices. There are some people who use these as smartphones. But our phones, for the most part, the number one use of them is social media. This is the way that the world shares information now, and the way that the social media companies operate is with an AI system which has a digital voodoo doll of every single human, with tens of thousands of data points, looking to push you towards the bottom of your brainstem. And that means running an engagement algorithm is the core of why it's pushing you towards the bottom of the brainstem. Its goal is to extract as much value from you as possible in the form of attention. In order to do that, stuff like lust, disempowerment, boring comedy, pure pleasure, controversy. Controversy is one of the biggest ones that really sticks people online. It makes them want to go comment. It makes them want to go, dang, this made me angry. And so these are all lower vibrational states. As like there's a spiritual movement who talks about the vibrations, high frequency, low frequency. In general, the idea of the AI today, right now I look at like a soul-sucking demon which has control over most of the world's information sharing. Most of media, most of human attention and time is going onto the internet. Most of that internet use is social media, and all social media platforms today run an engagement algorithm. And so the pervasiveness, how much negative effect this is happening, we're seeing on a rate of people who literally would never kill themselves before are now killing themselves as much as that other batch. Some people used to look at that singular batch of people committing suicide and say this was just mental problems. These people were born where they had chemical imbalances and they weren't able to feel happiness. That might be a piece of it, but that means we are far worse, and the AI of today is far more pervasive because we are over doubling the amount since we've kind of unleashed this onto the world. So that's like a big core piece of the systemic change. Yeah, I have a friend who's coming over. I'll just look at it and see. No, it's not.
Okay.
Oh, that wasn't him calling, but he did text me that he's on the sidewalk.
Oh, yeah, we should have.
I'll keep talking.
Okay.
He'll bring him into the conversation.
Okay.
You know, it's fun. So that's the part of the website. If you go to systemicaltruism.com, you'll see aligning recommender systems. That's where AI today has the biggest pervasive impact on society. Is its recommender systems. It's saying which information should I show this person? And this is part of what I understood with what I ran, which was Neo-Stoicism and Existism. These were my two movements for let's fight suffering of, our genetic incapability. Was information was able to shape my identity to make me want to become a doer of good, to become a doer of action, to become someone who wants to go focus on solving problems. And so I saw then my capability to spread more information as the solution as well. Come on. My brother. You're now part of our video. Come on in.
No, I don't want to step on this man's shoes. Give me a second.
So, I'm doing a little talk right now,
You look great.
and it's about systemic altruism, my non-profit movement that I'm starting. Have you heard of EA, Effective Altruism?
Yeah, from you.
Yeah. And I told you the story of what happened with EA.
No, I don't think so.
So it was obviously really exciting for me to find EA.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, my people who want to focus on doing the most good, that's great. So I was like, how had I not heard of this? They started in 2002.
Right.
And I was like, I was mad depressed when I was young, looking for a group online who was like, let's do the most good. Let's live together. Let's just only focus on this. I love the idea of Buddhism to the degree of being a monk and just being focused towards a goal. Find something and just become devoted to it.
Right.
I think most people, and this is controversial, but I think 99.9% of people have not found their purpose. Because I think if you found your purpose, then you're not scrolling on Instagram all day. If you found your purpose, you go live that purpose.
Yeah.
I think people have found a passion. I think purpose is very rare.
Yeah.
So that was super cool. I'm like, how have I not heard of EA? I need to help spread this movement. That's how I can help. They have all the resources. They have all the officialities set up. So this is great. I've been thinking about doing something like this, on a bigger scale, a wider name. Love the name, Effective Altruism, do good better. Great. So I used I have a company where we help different brands like get lots of views through Giphy. And so I just did that for them. Didn't ask anyone. It's just like, let me be self-motivated. Took quotes from the websites, had them animated, and then got them up and ranked so that people can use these gifts. When anyone searches stuff like altruism, now it shows Effective Altruism.
There you go.
So it got it out there in the world. Do good better. I took quotes that could attract some people, just a beacon.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if my younger self could have found this sooner, that would be great. And then I got a call from the Center for Effective Altruism, from the head of their risk management. And they're like, hey, we don't want to be advertising mass market. You need to take this down.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And I went into that sob story of, I was mad depressed when I was young. This could have been a game changer. We need more people to be able to find this. You guys aren't doing a lot of like movement building. There's no videos. You're spending so much money on sending bed nets, because that's the number one way that they've identified how we can make effective altruism happen, which is not systemic change. So I don't necessarily agree that that's the most effective. But like, you don't even have videos of showing all of that good happening,
right?
Which can help people be a beacon towards like your movement spreading. They did a really good job of getting in bed with all the billionaires of the world and like getting tons of funding, like massively funded. But here's a core component. Here's where I can help. Okay, I'm being helpful. But it's like, no, we want to like recruit a certain type of people. We don't want our forums getting flooded. We want people from Oxford, Harvard, top schools like Stanford. They're trying to recruit like an elite class of academics to join there. And so I said, okay. This is when I was going out to India, and I was looking at setting up, I created a website called effectivesociety.org. The other thing that I found was like, I looked and I was like, where can I go live with EAs? I'm like, EAs must be a super cool group. There's lots of cool people. They must have cool group houses where people are just like trying to do the most good together.
Right.
And that didn't really exist. And I was kind of surprised. There was, one, but it was like bunk beds in the UK somewhere. And, I called in, and I guess it wasn't that like growth minded towards like they had purchased the property. And it was like, there's a limited number of rooms, so people were coming in and out. So it wasn't like the go-getter group together. It was more like people working on separate things. I like the collective tribal type mindset. I'm like, let me start that. Let me start Effective Society. This could be really cool in India because it's absolutely super cheap to like house people, give them their own room, even cover stuff like, people out there live better than upper middle class families live out here because everyone has a maid. Everyone just like that lifestyle is how they work. It's all services. There's an app for everything that fixes everything. Even hanging up like a poster, it's like 10 cents. It's like getting your haircut, $3, full stop, including like driving and all those fees and everything. Salon to the door, all the stuff, right? And it's like pretty cool. So I'm like, this is good. That was another thing where they're like, this is an X risk to the community, and we didn't approve this. And I'm like, you're gonna stop me from trying to get people to come live together and just do good for the world, along with stopping me from like advertising the movement.
Right.
So that's what had prompted my realization that I'd like to start a parallel movement. I'm not saying people in EA are bad, but I'm saying there's a take that's not being looked at of the mass marketed, mass type of media movement, because that's the other part of it is, I think one of the biggest problems we have in the world today is the influencers on the internet are very much so caught up in perpetuating the distractionary, just bullshit world lifestyle, which is like not connected to the world's problems, and it's like not teaching the youth about how they can just be legends towards focusing on this higher stuff. It's not pushing what I call enlightened capitalism. It's reinforcing, young people who have no money and they're getting their biggest thing that they can ask for Christmas. Say a parent gives them like a budget of $1,000, and people are like, I want a Louis Vuitton bag,
Right.
you know? And that's like, out of all the stuff you as a young kid could buy with $1,000, this is like your one present per year, you're just trying to feed back into the vanity status system that we have. And it's like, that's not the kid's fault. That is our influencer's fault. That is who is platformed today as cool. So that's the other side of it. It's like, we need to make it cool. It has to be very dope to help solve the world's problems. I think that movement will accelerate with like the rate of AI changing the world and people having existential crises.
Yep.
It's like existential acceleration is good. I was lucky from a young age to be so existentially accelerated that I was depressed. That was the cause of my depression, was because I was not being normal. I was thinking 60 years in the future, and I'm like, what is life for? I'm just gonna die, and like blah, 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 blah. So I was existentially accelerated then. And I was like, you know, lucky enough to, I guess, go through that process and then think about this stuff. But I watched that movie, Don't Look Up. Have you seen it?
I've not.
You should watch it, for sure.
Right.
Because it's a movie about a comet which is coming towards Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then like some people are like, hey, like the comet's coming towards Earth. And most people are like, nah, no, it's not, you know? And I feel like that same sort of thing is happening with AI today, which is like, a lot of people deny the capabilities of AI, as they have been. There's some memes about this, which show like, AI will never beat a human in chess. And then it's like, no.
Done.
It's like, AI will never be able to do art. It's like, oh, no.
Done.
AI will never be able to code software. That's getting removed. And it's like, we're like 6 months away from doing like perfect Hollywood movies. That I think is really, really interesting. Something I want to show you. I put a team on to starting a aiflix.org. That's what I got for the domain. And it's part of this story from Max Tegmark, Life 3.0. Have you read that book? Very good book. I just want you to actually watch a YouTube video I'll send you after this.
Yeah, sounds good.
You can save it because it's mint. Omega Team. Look up Omega Team on YouTube. Watch that. It's an hour long. It's this guy Max Tegmark, who's a professor, researcher at MIT, one of the more well-respected AI people, and his book Life 3.0 goes long into like understanding AI systems, understanding why it's so important. This was made in 2017, so prior to this AI sort of craze that we're going through, which I relate to in that movie, Don't Look Up. Eventually people start caring about this once they see like a glimpse of the comet high in the sky, because most people are like, the comet doesn't exist.
Yep.
Finally they see a glimpse of it. Our glimpse is seeing the art and ChatGPT. But obviously the comet comes closer, AI is going to display its strength stronger and stronger, where you and your friend are hanging out and you're like, dang, I wish we could watch Batman and Godzilla fighting. And then you can see that. And there's this dangerous part of this, of course, too, where it's like, if someone wants to mess with your brain, if there's evil people online, they can make a video of you doing anything and send it to you.
Yeah.
I have a friend right now who sent me audio messages
Yeah.
of me interviewing other people.
Yeah.
Just saying like comedic stuff. Luckily he's my friend and he's not using it very malignantly.
Yeah.
But to some degree it was like alarming hearing myself.
It is. I mean, like, what was it, just 2 days ago? Like, someone released a picture of the Pentagon on fire.
Yeah.
And the stock market dropped by like $500 billion.
No way.
Yeah, seriously. And then, like, my CIO, like, he's getting his friends on, his followers on Instagram, they're getting DM'd with Zoom links, right? And it's like, hey, like, hop on this link. And when his friends go on, it's him. It's his face. But they haven't perfected the voice yet because he's like, you know, a Caucasian, white, good-looking male, but he shows up speaking with an Indian accent right now. So they still need to perfect that, but once they do, it's going to be risky.
Right. Yeah, the strength of the systems lowers the IQ points needed in order to do malevolent actions, basically. I think someone had once said, it's like, each year we lower the IQ points needed to build a nuclear bomb even.
Yeah, and it's creating new industries of cybersecurity as well. So there's companies out there for AI detection now. For not just video, but
they're
audio.
failing. They're failing pretty hard.
They're failing, yeah.
For the text.
Right
for
now,
the text
yes.
output. Like, at the end of the day, we have now created a neural net which can produce custom content And if it even can detect a certain thing within that, which to my current understanding they're unable to do right now off of like GPT-4. Like they cannot tell whether it's human written or non-human written.
Right.
Even if they could, you would be able just to put a small prompt into the
Right.
top of it saying, change it. Even if there was something they were detecting.
Yeah.
You can even ask it to like do like emoji text or, you know, ooh, like, type of like writing, and it does it, you know?
Yeah.
So you can ask it to be a teenager texting.
Yeah.
And use you rather than you.
Right.
So those sort of things are like, wow. I mean, people should be existentially accelerating. I think it's inevitable that we do, because I think the problems and these stories are going to be more relevant and become more often. And I think to some degree it's positive, because I think to some degree there's a lot of people in the world right now who recognize, holy crap, we're in a very, very important time period in the world. Like, it's all very important of what each one of us does. We're all very powerful and impactful in this grand story. And it's good if people all recognize that and we focus less on the distractions. And that's what gives me the most hope in this case is, I think when we do collectively put our energy and our action and our care towards changing things, we go change those things.
Yeah.
Like the massive influence of celebrities and influencers is super well known, where they can build billion-dollar brands of even just like, let's make a chocolate bar for like Mr. Beast very, very quickly. You know, their amount of attention of the world and just people who care because they know this person is massive. And I think we're missing that sort of person who's pushing a bigger narrative for the world, which gives people hope. Because I think a lot of people are disempowered from this like bigger idealistic thinking, because overall they either think it's like it's so big of a problem that only God can solve it for them, or they think it's just like impossible to oppose the elites, that the government truly has control of everything and everyone, and there's no narrative right now in that opposing section that is wide and public. That's what I think about a lot, is that category, if we just had like a matrix and we're like big narratives. You have like World Economic Forum on like totalitarian control side. It's like, okay, they win that. Big narrative, opposing totalitarian control, positive future for humanity. The People's Order, you know, rather than like New World Order, the name that a lot of people are giving World Economic Forum or United Nations or elite group, Bilderberg group, BlackRock, whatever.
Right.
All this stuff, which way more people are learning about the powers that be because of the decentralized media. Well, what is the People's Order side? You know? Is there anything, Sarah, do you know of any good People's Order?
People's Order.
To the degree of like, there's lots of corruption in the world, there's lots of bad stuff, people don't really have real representation. How are they going to get that back? What narrative should they support?
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere?
Corruption is everywhere.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
spiral.
true. The recognition of the corruption is everywhere. You know, the problem has been properly stated. There's a quote that says, a problem properly stated is half solved. And so there's another quote which says, there's nothing greater than an idea whose time has come. And so I think we're at the stage where the idea whose time has come is People's Order, is big positive narratives. Because the side of the people learning about all this corruption happening from legacy media dying, which was like 6 news channels controlled by the same corporation, was the way that most people learned about the world. We phased out of that towards giving everyone a voice. Obviously, these platforms are still controlled to some degree. There is stuff that is removed. They do work with government power. That's what this recent Twitter files showed that Elon Musk put out. And they do have engagement algorithms, so it's not empowering people. It's not showing people and making them become their best selves. But it's still completely changed the dynamic of what people know and what people learn about. And the trust in government, there's graphs of this which are showing it's just like falling very, very, very fast. And I look at that and I look even farther towards this, which we just talked about AI and creation and how the photos are perfect, video is becoming more perfect. AI flicks is the thing where in that Life 3.0 book that I talked about in the beginning, he writes a prologue, which is a story about how does a, you know, powerful group spawn from near nothing using AI. And part of it is they build the next Netflix. And since big box movie theaters used to cost millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars per film, and now it's, you know, $1,000 of compute, less over time. Right. I mean, we're making it way cheaper, like crazy to do images. So I assume one day it'll be $1 to make a movie. Then the power of Hollywood, which is well known in a lot of people who, I guess, continue to look at all these power structures as a place which helps control their narrative, is then going to be in the hands of everyone as well. And so the capability to then make movies and basically create what one could consider to be long form memes, where a meme is just the packaging of an idea, that are super powerful, super inspiring, positive stories for the world, goes into the hands of everyone. And as long as we give our attention towards that, that's what the cool part about this, which is why I think it's inevitable that we win. Or you could go to the cliche quote, light always wins over darkness. Well, we truly all do have the power if we do just recognize it. And so systemic altruism itself is, to me, a collection of this foundational core stuff that I have prepared. I have an app with the empowerment algorithm. Part of systemic altruism is like showing that we can turn schools into institutions which, while people are in school, they can make massive change. That was something I proved myself, where I just stopped going to my classes and I focused on building something of value. That's never been more true today for people in schools, that they can become massively valuable, because education has never been more valuable, because we've never been changing the economic landscape faster by building these new tools. For example, a copywriter who had 20 years of experience never would have been overtaken by someone who could just learn a tool. But now someone who spends a month with ChatGPT, they're more valuable than the 20-year copywriter who hasn't spent the month learning ChatGPT and how to utilize it in their system and workflow. And so that's becoming more true for more and more positions, video editors, logo designers, etc. And that will continue to become more true. So a lot of the way school that's ran today is completely off. And I didn't tell you, but while I was in India, I met the owner, I might have told you, of a school. Mm-hmm. I did tell you that. And then did I tell you that
it's building another one?
The new one's done. They want to build like a bigger one. But they built a new 1 million square foot campus where there's only 3,000 students there. And I listened in on, we had a faculty meeting at that school where he brought me, and it's like 300 of the staff, and they're mainly talking about ideas for how do we increase admissions. And just before this, I had went and visited a lot of the bachelors of mass media students just to ask questions in their classroom. And all the students, I was asking what could this be done better for your course? And every single kid was or they're in college, they're not really kids. They were they're only a couple years younger than me, I guess. Applied skills. It was we want to learn to actually do this stuff, not do rote memorization on paper. And then I went to the faculty meeting, and all of the staff was how do we get more students? Social media, social media, social media. They're all recommending they do social media stuff. And I'm you guys have an entire mass of students who really want to learn to do social media. You guys are a collective who really needs social media. Do you see the connection here? You know, and so I recommended that, and then I recommended from the other side, and now I got a course implemented into the school called Viral Media for all of the students, which I get to deliver the coursework for, which will include like, I think turning it into the most viral university in the world isn't a crazy thing because you have a force of 500 people. Like that would be very expensive to put together 500 employees making media. And it's also powerful for them to like film together, do big skits together. So that's something that I've prepped. The school year starts in like a month. And I think that success will be proof in and of itself for other schools and for other like classes. Second semester, there's 800 to 1,000 students who are in AI or tech, CS, who they're down to say, this is their fourth semester, 1,000 of them who are in their final year. They've already been talking about this, and I sort of just pushed it forward a little harder. Second semester, should they do purely just going after building startups? Yes. So now they're going to be building, maybe they'll group up. So maybe there'll be 400, 500 startups. That's a lot of new startups. It's a lot of potential. So that to me is juice towards this narrative, towards these ideas that I have, because I look at it and I'm still like, damn, my dreams are way bigger than myself. But I've watched so many YouTubers go from having ideas and then just like building on top of it. I think my moat relative to those YouTubers is they're not as connected to the business world. So it required them getting, Mr. Beast didn't start his first company till he was like super, super big. So there's a difference there of like impact here. I think with what we're doing, as stuff scales, it's gonna scale way faster than any other YouTuber can scale. Because I'm focused on core manifestation capability through a school. If lots of students start seeing this viral university coming out, we have the website made, viraluniversity.org. I also already got some applications because I had some students start creating test content. I got like 500,000 views total.
I have it.
Then that school with 20,000 open spots, all of the India young people are gonna sign up to this school because they want to be a creator. There's no other better school to be a creator at than the Viral University. That would be crazy for the storytelling capability. Like, it's big when a creator brings like 1,000 people together for a video. That would just be every day. People come into school, 5,000 students. That's crazy. So this to me gives me confidence or excitement towards all of my internal like big picture thinking for this narrative to form and become real and to become something that people could believe in. Because I think there are people who have tried on a small scale. I've gone out and tried to find all the people starting these like opposing narratives. None of them have given me faith because they're all basically just become like, oh, we're a YouTube channel who just does podcasts about this stuff.
Right.
There's no goal or plan to go exponentiate. And so there's no way, with as much support as could happen here, that they take off and have that plan. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about what is the plan, what is the pathway to get there, what things could accelerate all these big ideas, even ideas like patching democracy and putting representation back into people's hands, which I can summarize. It's rather than a representative being voted into a seat of power and then having that position for 4 years rather than a political class forming, to re-give people all of that voting power, like what would have happened if the founding fathers were able to make a democratic system in the age of the internet. Why were representatives created? It's because we couldn't transfer information at the speed of light through our phones, so we needed to select people who could then represent a body of people. And then over time, since there's selected parties who figured out that they can build systems which can capture that power that's where we've formed a political class. That's where corruption has then, construed together. That's where there's a, democratic, DNC, what's that one called? There's two,
Democratic.
the Republicans and the Democrats both have their like groups
Right.
of political campaigning parties to put their people up. And there's a reason why then on the ballots, they're only really showing the top results. So it's like, you're never really going to get a third, fourth candidate who just gets a lot of votes. People have to fill it in manually. So those sort of things where you can still control a system of voting by controlling how the votes are displayed. Like imagine you do a Twitter poll and there's two options, and then the third option, it's like you have to type this in. Obviously, these two other options are going to be preferred. So the patch is simply take a position of power with someone, even like an influencer. We saw Donald Trump, which was more like an influencer celebrity type, able to get a presidency. And this person simply agrees to give their votes back to the American people based on voting that forms in an application, which is fully transparent, blockchain voting app. If you are an American citizen, you get one vote within this system. Obviously, there's a problem of not every single person wants to vote on every single bill, but rather than having one person elected per the 4 years, any person could change their vote or where they give their voting power towards to another person at any time. So this is called liquid democracy, which is like, I'd be like, Glenn, I love your political views. Let me just go ahead and say, whatever you vote on, my vote is yours. And you might go to someone else who you really trust and give them your vote too. But it builds this system which then completely allows no political class to form. You're my representative. Anyone's a representative, and those representatives can change at any time. And that empowers culture, that empowers people for all of our votes and what we think about to matter. And I think that would then make people care a little bit more about who we platform, about who are the influencers. Because right now we have a very disempowered, distracted, and extracted culture. Partially because we have misaligned AI systems which have billions of dollars behind them in order to try to maximize having you lay in bed all day doing nothing but scrolling or on Facebook and coming back, because part of what it's optimizing for is not that engagement time per session, but if you get disempowered and you do your dreams less and then you come back to the platform, it's understanding that. It is still optimizing towards that. It knows when it fed someone that video, and it has a mass of users who then quit Facebook altogether and started living their best lives. And it protects against that. It goes, wow, that video was terrible. Never show people that video or videos like it. There might have been really, really empowering positive videos which completely transform people's lives in a positive direction. But those are not going to get spread. If that video has existed, these recommender systems see that as a cancer or virus to them because it's too powerful and impacting positively to you. So I think the opposite algorithm looks amazing. Obviously, boom, the app's already built for that. So that's like proof of pudding, where EA also has had billions of dollars run through it, and they had no movement juice. There's no narrative there. It's crazy to me. I don't think they've caused that much impact because it's not systemic, Right. And it's all about, unless we solve the core problems, we're not really solving the underlying problem, So that's an overview. Obviously, the portion of the representative power in a blockchain voting app, some of these things sound like, messing with politics or trying to do a democracy patch. That is tough for some people to look at and be like, I'm excited for that. Even though it's an idea which just gives power back to the people, it sounds like it could be corruptible. It sounds like it could be wrong, especially saying blockchain, because we had blockchain stuff blow up. But blockchain is just a representation of immutable information. So to that degree, it's not like there's some crypto token attached to this thing. which, you know, gets pumped. It's just the methodology of how do we create a secure voting system that no central party could change the stats on. Then, the other side of it is everyone knows that government systems are like imperfect and need a change, but there is no narrative. There is nothing I've ever seen proposed which does push towards a solution towards that. And so, as I do this more and more, talk about it, I think the clarity of it will increase. The reason I'm making this video is two-part. One, I'm sending this to some of my family members who may want an update on my life and stuff, and just following the story and talking about these ideas. Getting their support is monumental. I have just had my aunt, Mary, who's a retired CPA, file this as a 501c3, so we can actually take in operative capital. Obviously, I'm still looking at it from a perspective of how much should I just continue to build businesses and just push all my money through this, versus could I start building the nonprofit side of things and actually just be pushed forward by the world from that altruistic aspect. Either way, I'm going to make it happen. I would obviously enjoy being able to purely focus on all the altruistic stuff. And I've made sure that any of my business stuff that I'm doing today is still just impacting the world in a good way. So that's a cool side of it. Next, people in general who are like, I love this to the degree that I want to be a part of effective society. I'm still on the mindset of building a tribe and building that sort of, it's like early YouTube team who understands these bigger picture thinking, main like videographer. I've hired some good videographers who can edit and stuff, but I'm still the one who needs to kind of piece together the script from all the stuff that I talk about. It's a little too high level for the people that I've had. So finding someone who can really just understand, if you understood everything I just talked about in this speech, you're qualified to that degree. And so even being a creative director then would be highly valuable. It's basically just like core fundamentally, I need to expand the amount of smart individuals around me who can take this forward, who can be a part of the YouTuber storytelling team. Mr. Beast obviously has the team around him. I'm looking at it sort of like that. I have the end goal mission of a YouTube video that I just put out as throwing a party on the moon, because I think when you're telling a narrative, you do need something which is mass market. And systemic altruism is mass market towards adults to the degree of being like positive, help the world. It fits for that niche. From a storytelling perspective, Party on the Moon in 2042 with everyone going is just a narrative for the world, something that's really cool. As we existentially accelerate, we're gonna be looking for these positive narratives that are big, high-level thinking. This is something that Mr. Beast, I think, would be excited about if he hears Party on the Moon. All the other influencers can totally push Party on the Moon. And that's just like an entrance effect into the doorway of the bigger, more real projects, which like, hey, in order for us to throw a party on the moon with everyone there, we're gonna have to make sure that we don't have a totalitarian regime who controls the world. You can sort of think about it like that meme where there's like two buttons. And in front of the elites today, they are now starting to see these buttons be real. Of one button says eternal power and control over everyone. And then the other button says give up all my power, everyone becomes equal. And it's like, what do the elites of today want to choose? They've already been choosing the control and gain more power button. It's like, what's gonna change? Maybe they get an existential crisis. It's like the Scrooge ghosts visit them and they realize that the only eternal power is the power of uplifting others and empowering others. Maybe they find God. Maybe they take some psychedelic drugs and have a spiritual experience. That hasn't been happening. But maybe if they see also a movement which is positive and good, and they listen to that sort of stuff, that can help. But in general, they don't have the power. The power at the end of the day is in all of the people's hands. And we as a people do decide the future. If we're convinced to give the elites the power or say they're too powerful and we can't do anything, then we've lost. And that's how we are pushed to lose. There is psychological operations which happen, psyops that they're called, online for government power to control the narrative and make sure that they are not losing power. They're failing to do that even so, in terms of like people disliking or seeing the corruption. But they're trying to defend against that. There's lots of money behind that. Because at the end of the day, where there is a massive amount of power leak or defense of power is at the core of control of our money supply. Bitcoin's been this representation of a push against that. Not many people know Bitcoin as that, but Bitcoin was started more as like a religion against centralized banking. Yeah. It became an investment asset for all of the people, and that's how people know it today, is like an investment asset. I don't think as many people understand it as the original core vision of create a digital gold, which is the reserve currency of the world, so that not a central party owns the money supply. Because that has been one of the biggest disenfranchising, disempowering things that now an elite group has control over, is they can just print tons more money and siphon it towards the local powers that be, whether putting it into the war machine, passing bills and having it go towards these crazy things where it's like so much money, it's so inefficient. And it is that way because human nature at the top is happening at scale, at an unenlightened scale. And the fact of the matter is, the enlightened people, the ones who recognize our ability to come together or like want to help the world, they just don't get into those positions of power. Mm-hmm. It's a bit of a catch-22. So, is there anything that didn't make sense to you?
Crystal clear.
Hell yeah. Well, let's save the world then. The resistance.
Good to see you. Welcome back.
Thanks, brother.